I selected my 5, where I also have the US elections, of course. Then I also have the Elon Musk and the technological miracle, because it's something that can be compared with the first flight, first space flight, or the moon landing. Depends on like whenever it happened, or whether it happened or not. We know that the audience might have different views. I also selected the Olympic Games in Paris. Remember, we had the Olympics this year.
I remember, yeah.
Yes. Then also one of the highlights, it's mainly for like for my country, for Russia, is the death of Alexei Navalny. You know, you obviously know him.
That was big news, but a lot of other things happened this year.
Yes, I will tell more about this.
Please do.
And following to this, like to build up on this. In summer, also, Russia exchanged some of the prisoners and some of the oppositioners. That was a very big prisoners exchange, and these things, they're interrelated. I will get into this in a moment. And also, I selected Linkin Park Resurrection.
Oh, of course you did. Of course you did. Wow. Top 5 event for the globe.
Exactly. Yes, and I will explain why.
Yeah, please do. Please figure out a way to convince me and the audience of that. Okay.
I don't need to convince anybody because it's obvious. Okay.
Okay. All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I will not go into the details about the elections because you covered it perfectly. But the reason I selected this is it's obvious. Every time we have the US elections, it's important and it's affecting the world. But in this particular case with Trump, first of all, it was like the political drama or maybe criminal drama. Like we can debate on this. But what I think it's more important is the way he's currently shaping the office as well. Because in America, one political figure cannot change that much. However, the way he is reshaping the office, the changes he proposed and the changes that are expected from him, they will reshape the world. Because now we see that basically he invited half of the PayPal mafia into the office, which is unprecedented, I guess. Unprecedented. Yes, thank you. So this will bring changes. Then I think it's the first time the first time when they announced the increasing of the efficiency of the governmental offices with the Doge that we discussed. So I think again it's a new step for the political development. And I'm intentionally not covering all the geopolitical topics that you already covered. So I think, definitely this is one of the highlights. And as you rightly mentioned, all the analysts, I think they agree that Trump is so unpredictable that we will see the changes, but these changes can go either direction. These changes can be either for good or for bad. We don't know, but obviously, whenever you look at the analysts talking about Russian-Ukrainian conflict, there is two directions. Either he starts pushing for the deal immediately, or he will increase the stakes and then try to get the deal. Same goes for the Middle East and for other relations with other countries. Okay, so this was my first highlight. The second highlight I'd like to cover is the death of Navalny. So why is it important, and what's the story about it? So if you heard about him, you know that he was probably the most noticeable, the most famous opposition leaders in Russia, if we can call it. So he was in the political field since 2008, 2009, and he started actually as a blogger. He started with the YouTube channel. This is how he started. He started doing and he was famous for it. He was doing the loud and deep investigations about the corruption in the government, and he touched many political figures. He covered everybody from the president to the mayor of Moscow, like a lot of people, and he touched a lot of people, and he pissed off a lot of people. So that's how he became famous. But the importance of his death and the importance and why I selected this as a highlight is is because basically with his death and with the following prisoners exchange that I mentioned, there is no more any even idea of the opposition in Russia anymore. He was in prison since 2022. He was sentenced to tens of years. He was already in prison since 2022, but he still was some kind of. Have you seen the Hunger Games?
Yep.
The movie? So he was kind of the Mockingjay. He was he was the symbol of the opposition. He was the symbol of the other direction. He was the symbol of anything like the symbol of the resistance. Let's put it this way. Even though he didn't have any power, he didn't have any political power, any political will, he didn't have any political program. By the time he was sentenced and by the time of his death, he didn't have any party, any political influence. But he was kind of a symbol. So what happened in 2022 first? So in 2022 he was imprisoned, and then in February of 2024 there was a news that he died in prison. Now we have a lot of conspiracy theories, whether it was he was killed, whether he was poisoned, whether he died from the sickness. Nobody knows, and I think we will know it in, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But that happened. And then in summer 2024, Russia exchanged a lot of opposition leaders, opposition figures, someone like Ilya Yashin. Have you heard about him? No. Okay, so the two most famous are Ilya Yashin and Vladimir Kara-Murza.
I know him.
Yeah. You know him?
Yeah, he lives in Germany, I guess, or lived in Germany.
Now they both are in Germany because the prison exchange happened in Germany. So basically, Russia exchanged 16 opposition leaders to eight convicted prisoners in Germany, convicted Russian prisoners in Germany. Most of them considered to be some sort of spies or special agents.
So what are you saying, that the Russians released 16 German spies?
No. So Russia released various people, opposition leaders, some foreigners that were also in prison. In exchange for 8 Russian citizens from Germany.
Okay, got it. Because Germany wanted them out of prison.
Germany kind of orchestrated this. This was international efforts to do this, and Germany was the ground where it happened.
Okay, to release Russian opposition leaders in exchange for Germany
releasing Russian spies or agents.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what they did. Why is it important? Because in this exchange there were two second main opposition leaders, Ilya Yashin and Vladimir Kara-Murza. So now, basically, they are also out of Russia, and again, with that, any sign of opposition, any sign of alternative path disappeared. So there is no more opposition in Russia. So we can say that the current government completely won this. So. Yeah, that's why I consider this as definitely the highlight for at least for Russian politics and for Russian audience.
Look, I think it's fair even from a global perspective because of how important Russia is as an individual country, right? So Russia's coming up in a lot of what we're discussing, whether it's the conflict in Ukraine, whether it's just geopolitics globally. So the political situation in Russia is obviously of a lot of importance. So yeah, interesting take, interesting story.
Also, just an interesting note, why this Vladimir Kara-Murza is famous, because basically he was the one who orchestrated the first sanctions against Russia. He was
Magnitsky Act, all that stuff?
Exactly. He was the author, an official author of Magnitsky Act. Exactly.
Could you explain to the audience what that was? Something about adopted children, right? And
so adopting children was the response from Russia. Yeah. From Russia. So basically, the story was the following: in early 2000s, there was a company operating in Russia, like a consulting company or investment company. I don't want to go into the details, but one of their lawyers, one of their legal counsels, Magnitsky, he investigated and he uncovered the huge corruption scandal and he was imprisoned in Russia, and then again mysteriously died in the prison.
American guy or
no, he was a Russian guy.
Russian guy.
He was a Russian guy, but in response to that, for the first time in Russian-American relations, the U.S. introduced the sanctions against the certain civil servants who were considered to be involved into his imprisonment, into this corruption scandal, and everything connected to that. So that was the first time, it happened like 15 years ago, and that was the first time when the U.S. introduced sanctions, individual sanctions against Russian civil servants. In response to that, Russia introduced the legal act preventing American citizens from adopting the Russian children. So that's how it all started. So basically, and one of the authors of the first sanctions imposed to Russian civil servants was this guy Vladimir Karamurza. He was working between the UK, the US, and Russia. So he was the one consulting the American government onto this sanction package.
Wow.
That's why he was like one of the most hated oppositioners in Russia by the government, of course.
That's interesting. And again, it sounds weird at first, like what kind of retaliation or punishment is banning American citizens from adopting Russian children? It sounds completely unrelated, but it's funny because, I mean, obviously I'm American, right? And growing up in the U.S., there was actually a lot of people that I met, a lot of people that I knew who were actually Russian adopted children in the U.S. So my understanding was in the 90s, there was a lot of people who wanted to obviously leave what was then, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, leave Russia. They brought their children, or maybe again due to alcoholism or whatever, the internal instability in the country. A lot of people put up their children for adoption, and a lot of Americans ended up adopting Russian children. So again, I knew a number of them growing up. So that's interesting. Wow. that then came in. Yeah, no, like a number of them, like probably 4 or 5 I could name right now, which is
just in your circle.
Just in my circle, yeah, just where I lived. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so with that is why I consider this as a highlight of the year, because with that two events, and I believe they're strictly interconnected, the prisoner exchange and Navalny's death, there is no more opposition in Russia. And I think we know from the history that it's impossible to do any changes from the outside of the country. So all the opposition members, and there is no more there is no more community of opposition, I would say. So it's done. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, big impact on what's happening right now between Russia, Ukraine, and obviously the wider geopolitics. So yeah, interesting story.
Yeah. Then let's go to another highlight that I selected, is the Olympic Games, and I didn't select this because it's the Olympic Games and it's a huge sport event. No, I selected this for the two main reasons. First of all, the positive one. You just described the...
Are you going to say the positive one being the U.S. won the gold medal in basketball? Is that what you're going to say?
I didn't even know that.
Of course we did.
Okay, you should have at least one sport.
I think we had the most medals anyway. Sorry, I cut you off. Go on.
Okay, good one. Okay, I selected this because first, like you described the chaos happening in the world, and still, this is kind of the beacon of the light where you have the international, tournament and international collaboration in its best, where you have all the people, all the countries competing together, and like. Sport is here, politics is here. This is how it's supposed to be. And I really like this tradition from the ancient Greece, where no matter what's happening in the world, we have the Olympic Games as a pause. But yeah, this is a positive thing. But the negative thing is the whole ceremony around the Olympic one. And I don't want to go into the details of the whole events, of the opening and on the closure, and all the like weird things that happened during the games itself, like people got poisoned in the sun. But anyway, but the way I think about this was the highlight of this like strong woke movement, and I think we covered it many times, the rise of the far right movement, and I think this was another drop to this. I think like when you see this major international highlight putting the woke movement on the spotlight, on the pedestal, I think this might have become another push towards the far right. I think that was that became one of the another acceleration, another reasons for the rise of the far right that we see across Europe. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, look, I totally agree. I remember, again, we don't need to go into the details of the event. I didn't watch the Olympics, to be honest. I just watched the highlights of the U.S. basketball team. And again, no surprise we won. But yeah, no surprise. But when I saw I saw it from my ex feed, where suddenly everybody was talking about this opening ceremony.
You saw it from your ex?
My ex-girlfriend said it to me. Exactly. She was like, "Did you see this?" No, my ex feed.
Okay.
Yeah. Formerly known as Twitter. I know sometimes I got to speak slowly so you understand, right? So, but yeah, look, I thought it was insane, to be honest, because again. And I think, we had this conversation a couple months ago. At some point, we were talking about what happened at the Olympics and the backlash, that they found a way to somehow insult everybody.
Exactly.
Which is impressive, almost, But it's like, what were you thinking? That's the thing I can't wrap my head around. This is meant to be a moment of unity, of putting aside, again, all your divisions. The world is obviously in a very chaotic time. There's a lot of wars going on. And then you want to put on this display that offended particularly, I think it was Christians, but obviously Muslims were affected. Muslims were offended. I don't think they had anything particular in Judaism, but you offended, at the very least, the two most populous religions on the planet. And you did so in a way that anybody would have known that that's what you're going to do by, again, making fun of the Last Supper and, inserting, LGBTQ, trans stuff into the Last Supper, I think it was, and stuff like that. So again, we don't need to go into all the details because some of it is insane. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I just thought it was, again, in poor taste. I think the French president, again, he's very unpopular right now. He just had a pretty bad beating in the elections over the summer, Macron. He came out and immediately was a staunch defender of the opening ceremony. And I remember seeing one of his tweets, and it said, "This is France." And I was thinking at the time, I was like, okay, that's what you think. Do your people think that? And what we're seeing is that more and more people, particularly in the West, as they go in this far right direction, that cultural conservatism and a backlash against this woke, this woke movement that we've seen for most of the past probably 10 years. So I agree. I think it only added fuel to the fire of this sort of culture war that's happening in the West. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I thought it was insane.
They tried too hard to be tolerant, so they managed to offend everyone.
In being so tolerant or trying to, you became intolerant by offending, again, all these other people. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and finally, Linkin Park.
Oh, yeah, okay. Talk to us about that.
That was the first episode we did. That's why I think it's already a highlight for us. But
for us, for the world, interesting. But yeah.
So think about it. Linkin Park used to be one of the most popular band of our generation, and they came up with a banger. They came up with a loud bang.
Are you going to play it again on the video? Are we going to have to do that?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Okay.
Let's put another song.
I should have expected that.
Let's put another song, of course.
All right.
But the way I see it, like first, then look what happened in the region where we are. We saw the loud concerts of the Eminem then we saw the music festival in Saudi Arabia, where they invited all the major bands, including Linkin Park, including Eminem, including all the voices of the generation. Let me put it this way. And also after Linkin Park, we saw the number of the bands again from that time announcing the new world tours, announcing new albums. So they kind of, I think this was the response to the request of the generation, and also they started this avalanche of the resurrection of the bands. So we will see it. That's why I think this is the like major cultural event. And if you can see at their like how their album is performing, it's phenomenal.
This is what you asked for. Heavy is the crowd, fire in the sunrise.
So, okay. So that Linkin Park reunifying is a globally, if you say so.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced, obviously. This isn't meant to be a debate episode, but if you say so.
We still have the culture clash, so
that's true.
It's definitely you're definitely not there. But if you look at the charts, and I think we will just let's check the when they announce the biggest music events of the year. Let's check, and I'm sure that Linkin Park will be like one of the top 3.
Okay.
I think it will be right below the Taylor Swift success.
Okay, so that makes it a top 5 globally significant event. That's okay. This was your list,
absolutely.
And you have a right to choose it.
Absolutely,
Fair
absolutely.
enough.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on to risks?
I think I need to make you listen to the whole album, and you will understand.
Yeah, right. Okay. If you say so, I'll think about it when there's some free time. I'll give them a listen.